You know, we spend a massive amount of time on this show breaking down these legal battles that, well, they usually fit a very specific mold.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost always David versus Goliath, right? You have the tenant, someone, maybe struggling a bit, living in a building that's seen better days,
Right.
and they take on the big bad landlord because the ceiling leaked or a step was cracked or, a plaster came down. It's the classic New York City courtroom drama.
It is. It's the standard personal injury playbook.
Yeah.
Tenant gets hurt, landlord gets sued, and insurance pays out. It's a rhythm the courts have danced to for decades.
But today we are looking at a case that takes that playbook, lights it on fire, and just throws it out the window.
Yeah.
We're looking at a situation where, yes, the landlord gets sued, but instead of just settling or, fighting the tenant on the facts of the fall, the landlord turns around, points a finger at the tenant's doctors, and sues them.
It is a fascinating legal maneuver. It effectively turns the defense into an attack. It's called a third-party complaint.
A third-party complaint.
Exactly. And specifically, we are doing a deep dive into a very dense, very wild filing from the Bronx Supreme Court, index number 271777020EE.
And just to be clear for everyone listening, this isn't just the landlord saying, I didn't do it.
No, it's much more than that. It's the landlord saying, I shouldn't be on the hook for this because you, this third person, this doctor, this clinic who wasn't even part of the original lawsuit, you're the one actually committing the harm.
Wow.
And the allegations in this document, they go way beyond standard malpractice.
Right.
We aren't talking about a doctor slipping up and nicking a nerve.
Right.
We are talking about an alleged massive organized fraud scheme. I mean, the filing actually invokes Reo statutes.
Wait, racketeer influenced and corrupt organizations? That's the heavy artillery. That's what prosecutors use for mob bosses.
It is. The accusation here is that the medical treatment wasn't just negligent. It was a criminal enterprise.
Yeah.
And at the center of this whole alleged scheme is something the source material calls the Subin Blueprint.
The Subin Blueprint.
Yeah, it refers to a specific pattern of litigation and medical treatment that the landlord alleges is designed to basically manufacture high-value injury claims from almost nothing.
Okay, I want to pause on that. The gravity of that.
Yeah.
We're not just talking about ambulance chasing here. We're talking about manufacturing medical history, creating injuries on paper that might not even exist in reality.
Correct. And look, just to set the stage before we get into the details, and honestly, some of these details sound like they belong in the dark comedy. We have to remember these are allegations.
Right.
They're contained in a verified complaint. The defendants, which include a surgeon, Dr. Michael Gerling, and a clinic, all Borough Medical Rehabilitation, they've denied these claims.
Of course.
But the blueprint described here, it's basically an instruction manual for what the landlord is calling insurance fraud on just a grand scale.
Okay, so let's open this instruction manual because every scheme needs a protagonist, or I guess a subject. Who is at the center of this case?
So our story begins with a man named Napoleon Aquino. He's the plaintiff in the original suit. He claims that on June 12, 2019, a ceiling collapsed on him in his apartment.
Okay, a ceiling collapse. So naturally, if a ceiling falls on you, the first thing you do is go to the hospital.
Which he did. He went to New York Presbyterian. And this is where the timeline becomes just the most critical piece of evidence.
Right.
We have the hospital records from day one, June 13th, the day after the accident.
So what do the doctors at one of New York's best hospitals actually see?
They see basically a healthy man. The records are remarkably unremarkable. They state he had no signs of trauma.
No signs of trauma.
None. He was neurologically intact. Now, that's a very specific medical phrase. It means his reflexes worked, his sensation was normal, his motor functions were perfect. He was walking normally.
So he's fine.
He's fine. He was discharged with a pain level of 2 out of 10.
2 out of 10. That is practically a nuisance. I slept on a bad pill of pain. So legally speaking, based on day one, this is a non-case. You go home, take some ibuprofen.
Under normal circumstances, yes. But this is where the so-called blueprint kicks in. The very next day, day 2, everything changes. The pivot is just immediate. Aquino signs with a law firm and shows up at a specific clinic, all Borough Medical Rehabilitation.
And I'm guessing the 2 out of 10 pain level didn't survive the trip to that new clinic.
It vanished. Suddenly, at all Borough, his pain is recorded as a 9 out of 10. He supposedly has restricted range of motion. The whole narrative shifts overnight from I'm fine to total disability.
A 9 out of 10.
And what really caught my eye in the documents is how he got there. The intake records note he was referred to this clinic by a friend.
A friend known only as Jesus.
Yep, just Jesus. No last name, no medical credentials, no contact info, just a referral from Jesus.
That feels like a detail you'd put in a screenplay, and a producer would say, no, that's too on the nose, cut it.
Right. So he lands at Allboro. Now, most people hear rehabilitation clinic, and they think of physical therapy, doctors, recovery.
Is that what this place is?
The allegations suggested something else entirely. The complaint calls it a gatekeeper clinic. And to understand that, you have to look at the management. The complaint focuses on this character named Stephen Weisbluth. He goes by Allboro Rehab Steve on the paperwork.
Allboro Rehab Steve. That sounds like a guy who can get you a deal on a used transmission, not a medical professional.
Well, that's the thing. He isn't a physician. He's the managing director. Yet the complaint alleges that his nickname starts appearing on medical referral forms, sending patients to surgeons.
So it's a referral mill.
The idea is that these clinics conduct initial exams not to diagnose what's actually there, but to create a paper trail. They are the entry point. Their job isn't to fix you, it's to route you to the next stage of the billing cycle.
So the gatekeeper isn't keeping sick people out. He's ushering potential lawsuits in. Aquino goes from 2 out of 10 to total disability in 24 hours. He's in the system.
He's in.
Now, if you're going to sue for millions, you need more than just a sore neck and a note from Rehab Steve. You need something operable.
Precisely. To get the big settlements, you need a catastrophic injury, something that requires surgery. And enter Dr. Michael Gerling.
And is he?
He describes himself as New York's top spine surgeon. And this is where we get into what I call the magic diagnosis, because you can't just operate on someone without proof they're hurt. You need pictures, an MRI, a CT scan, something.
Right, you need to see the damage.
And Aquino gets one. He goes to a place called Kolb Radiology. And the radiologist there, he claims to see herniations at multiple levels of the spine C3-4, C4-5, C5-6. To a layman, that sounds like his spine is a complete wreck.
Multiple herniations. That sounds like he was in a car crash at 60 miles an hour. But here's the snag medical imaging is objective, right? A herniation is either there or it isn't.
You would think so. But later, independent hospital reviews looked at these same scans and took new ones and found nothing. The herniations vanished. The hospital imaging showed a mild bulge at C6-7.
Hey, hold on. What's the actual difference between a mild bulge and a herniation? Because they sound kind of similar.
It is a huge difference. A mild bulge is like a wrinkle near your eyes.
Yeah.
It's very common, especially as you age. If I scanned 100 random people on the street, half of them might have one. It's usually asymptomatic.
Okay.
A herniation is when the disc actually ruptures and the inner material leaks out and presses on the nerve. That causes agony. The hospital found a mild bulge and a completely normal spinal cord.
So we have one radiologist seeing a disaster zone and everyone else seeing a totally normal neck. What does Dr. Gerling do? Does he say, hey, these scans conflict, let's get a third opinion?
He actually noted in his own files that the initial scans had poor resolution. He admitted the pictures were bad.
He admitted it.
Yes, but instead of stepping back, he recommended a 2-level fusion surgery. Then later, he switched the recommendation to a C6-7 fusion. He was recommending invasive surgery based on scans that he admitted were poor quality and which later reviews showed were essentially normal.
And he schedules this surgery for February 6th, 2020. I want everyone to just lock that date in their heads. February 6th, because what happens 3 weeks before that surgery is honestly the part of the story that just makes you question reality.
This is the Atlantic City incident. If we're looking for a smoking gun regarding the patient's physical ability, I mean, this is it.
So January 12, 2020. Less than a month before he's supposed to get his spine fused because he's totally disabled. Where is Napoleon Aquino?
He is in Atlantic City, and he is decidedly not resting in bed with a neck brace. He allegedly steals his girlfriend's car while she's in a casino. Police spot him driving erratically. He's already blown out a tire, so he's driving on the rim.
Oh, my God.
He runs 2 red lights, and then he crashes head-on into a parked car right in front of the casino.
A high-speed joyride and a head-on collision. That already contradicts the idea of a fragile man who can barely move. But the crash is just the beginning.
It is. When the police get him out of the car, they discover something unusual. Aquino is naked from the waist down.
Naked.
Yes.
From the waist down. In January.
Yeah.
In Atlantic City. I mean, that paints a picture of someone who is not in a stable frame of mind.
And he doesn't go quietly. He fights the officers.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the key medical paradox. We have a man who Dr. Gerling says has a catastrophic spinal injury, a disc pressing on his spinal cord.
Right.
Yet this man is physically wrestling with police officers. He's tackled, he's pinned to the ground, and an officer ends up kneeling on his back to subdue him.
Okay, let's just apply some common sense here. If you actually had a herniated disc that required fusion and a cop tackled you and put a knee in your back, what happens?
It would be blindingly painful. You would see what doctors call guarding, where the body instinctively locks up to protect the injury. You'd be screaming, spasms, maybe even paralysis if the cord was actually compressed further.
But that's not what happened.
No. The police body cam footage shows zero pain response. He's turning his neck repeatedly, fighting, twisting. He's moving his head like a boxer.
He is effectively in an MMA match with the police 3 weeks before a spinal fusion. That seems impossible if the injury was real.
Exactly. And there's a darker layer to this. The next day, Aquino was involuntarily committed for mental illness. The hospital note said an undiagnosed mood disorder and deficient knowledge. He wasn't just acting out, he was in a mental health crisis.
He was committed. And yet, 3 weeks later, on February 6th, Dr. Gerling performs elective spinal surgery on him.
That is the allegation. Dr. Gerling performed an anterior cervical discectomy and fusion, an ACDF.
Can you explain what that actually involves? I think people hear fusion and think it's just, welding bones together.
It's extremely invasive. They make an incision in the front of your throat. They have to dissect down, move your esophagus and your trachea, your food pipe, and your windpipe to the side to get to the spine. Then they remove the disc and screw a titanium plate into the bone to lock it all together.
They did that to a man who had been involuntarily committed just weeks before.
Yes, and whose disability was completely contradicted by a police brawl. It raises profound questions about consent. Did Aquino even have the capacity to understand what he was signing up for?
And what about the physical evidence from the surgery itself, the missing evidence you mentioned?
Right, the pathology report.
Yeah.
Standard medical protocol is when you cut tissue out of a human body, you send it to a lab. You have to prove what it is.
Is it a herniated disc? Is it healthy tissue?
Exactly. Gerling's notes claim he set the specimen. But the hospital pathology records show no specimen was ever received. They only got a blood sample.
That is startling. The complaint is basically saying he removed a non-existent herniation, so there was nothing to send to the lab.
That is the implication. Fake injury, fake pathology, but a very real surgery with very real hardware left in the patient's neck.
But why? Why go through all this risk? Operating on a mentally ill man, faking records, it just seems like such a high-wire act.
You have to follow the money. The complaint details a pattern of funding. You see these checks from companies with names like Campiro Inc. and Prosecco Inc.
Not insurance companies.
No, they're litigation funding entities. They funnel money to the surgeon, in this case Dr. Gerling, with memo lines like, funding ACDF.
Funding ACDF. It sounds like they're pre-ordering the surgery, like buying a bespoke suit.
Essentially, it's alleged to be a kickback system. The funders pay for the surgery up front, expecting to get paid back triple or quadruple when the lawsuit settles. If the surgery happens, the value of that lawsuit skyrockets. A soft tissue injury might be worth $20,000. A spinal fusion, that could be worth millions.
So the surgery is an investment vehicle.
Correct. And this isn't the first time Dr. Gerling has faced this specific accusation. The source material points out that Geico, the insurance giant, previously sued him for a very similar scheme.
Geico sued him.
Yes, and they won a preliminary injunction. The judge in that case found evidence of fraud beyond the ordinary level. Gerling settled that case shortly after the ruling. So this isn't a one-off accusation. It's a recurring theme in his practice, according to these filings.
Okay, so we have the crazy accident, the questionable diagnosis, the Atlantic City brawl, the shady funding, but the defense could still argue, hey, weird things happened. Maybe this was just one rogue patient. Maybe the doctor didn't know about the arrest.
That is exactly what they would argue, but the complaint anticipates that. They zoomed out and looked at the cluster, and statistically, this is where the coincidence defense just completely disintegrates.
This is the family affair part of the outline.
It is. The complaint maps out a social network. So first you have the witness to Aquino's accident, a woman named Lisa Acosta. She also had a case with the Subin law firm. She also went to Allboro. She also saw Dr. Gerling.
Okay, that's one coincidence. Possible. Maybe they just recommended the doctor they knew.
Then you have Aquino's wife, Herminia. She claimed a slip and fall. Went to Allboro, got surgery.
Okay, now it's getting suspicious.
Then you have the wife's witness to her accident, Juan Noisi. He had a slip and fall. Went to Allboro, got a fusion.
That's 3 people.
And finally, Juan Noisi's wife. She had a slip and fall. Went to Allboro, saw Dr. Gerling.
So 4 people, all connected socially or by marriage, all suffering the exact same catastrophic spinal injuries, all going to the exact same clinic, all seeing the exact same surgeon.
It suggests a manufactured assembly line. I mean, think about the odds. What are the chances that 4 people in one social circle would all legitimately suffer these injuries requiring spinal fusion in a short time frame? It defies medical statistics. It's like everyone in your book club winning the lottery on the same day.
It sounds like a club no one would want to join unless the winnings were the settlement checks.
And that is the Subin Blueprint allegation in a nutshell. Recruit vulnerable people, manufacture an injury narrative, funnel them through these gatekeeper clinics, perform unnecessary high-value surgeries to inflate the medical bills, and then sue for millions.
This feels so blatant. If the paper trail is this obvious, the checks, the police reports, are the courts actually catching on to this? Or is it just getting buried in paperwork?
The tide seems to be turning. There's a very telling quote in the source material from a judge in Queens, Justice Esposito. In a related hearing, he asked who sent a patient to Dr. Gerling. When the lawyer said, her physician did, the judge replied, on the record, they're all in cahoots. That's my ruling.
They are all in cahoots. You don't usually hear judges be that blunt. Usually it's all allegedly and preponderance of the evidence.
It speaks to the level of judicial frustration. Judges see thousands of cases. They spot the patterns. And it's not just small landlords fighting back anymore. Uber has also filed suit against Dr. Gerling for substantially the same conduct.
The rideshare company.
Yes.
Yeah.
When you have major corporations like Geico and Uber shining a spotlight on this, the blueprint starts to crumble.
And what about Dr. Gerling himself? Is he still operating?
The complaint notes his privileges were suspended at NYU and Lenox Hill hospitals due to internal investigations. He had to resign and move his operations. So there are professional consequences starting to mount.
So let's step back and look at the whole picture. We have a minor accident, maybe a staged one, aggressive recruitment, ignored medical tests, surgery on a mentally ill man who was fighting cops 3 weeks before, and this massive paper trail. Why should our listener care about a lawsuit in the Bronx?
It matters for 2 big reasons. First, the financial one. This isn't a victimless crime. When insurance companies and landlords pay out millions for fraudulent claims, they don't just eat that loss.
No, it gets passed on.
Exactly. It raises insurance premiums for everyone driving a car. It raises rent. It clogs up the court system, making it harder for people with legitimate injuries, people who really are hurt, to get justice.
It pollutes the whole system. If every claim is suspected of being fake, the real victims have a harder time being believed. And the second reason.
The human cost. This is the part that is truly disturbing. We are talking about invasive, dangerous spinal surgeries being performed on people who, clinically, may not need them. In the case of Napoleon Aquino, you have a mentally ill man, involuntarily committed, who is then subjected to a fusion of his cervical spine. That is a permanent, life-altering procedure.
It isn't just a scar, it changes how you move forever.
It creates adjacent segment disease, it limits mobility, it's physical battery disguised as medicine, driven by profit. If the allegations are true, they're taking vulnerable people, poor, mentally ill, desperate, and using their bodies as ATMs. The titanium plate in that man's neck is basically a receipt for a lawsuit.
That is a chilling thought. We often think of insurance fraud as just pushing paper around, but here the paper is human tissue.
Exactly. It crosses a line from a financial crime to physical abuse.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave everyone with a thought. The Subin Blueprint described here seems incredibly detailed, but also kind of sloppy. I mean, operating on a guy weeks after he was arrested naked in Atlantic City, leaving a paper trail of funding checks.
It does seem brazen, but that might just be because they got away with it for so long. Success can breed arrogance.
So if this is the scheme that got caught because it was so obvious, how many other referral networks are operating right now doing the exact same thing, but just a little bit smarter? How many healthy people are getting surgeries today just so a lawyer can demand a bigger settlement?
That is the question that should worry us all.
And once again, we have to state that the contents of this deep dive are based on allegations in a verified third-party complaint. The defendants have denied liability, but the filing is public record, and it is a wild read.
Absolutely. Index number 27170-2020E for anyone who wants to dig deeper.
Thanks for diving in with us. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and maybe watch out for falling ceilings.
I'd check your medical records.
See you next time.